Hi guys and welcome to a competitive commander card review for Birgi, God of Storm, and her Harnfel, Horn of Abundance. Oh well, I know that her real name is Storytell, but honestly this is truly a Storm commander and a Storm card. The Kaldheim set have so far been producing a bunch of really interesting cards that might see some play here and there, but I think this might claim the spot of being the best cEDH card from the entire Kaldheim set. And in this video we're going to be talking about having this as your commander, or more specifically having the Horn artifact as your commander in a Monored deck, or having this inside the 99 of a various potential commanders that could play this. I honestly kinda wanna do a deck tech video for this because I think this could claim the spot of being the potential best Monored commander in the cEDH format. However, that video might have to wait because when you're building new Storm decks, you might have to experiment and place test them a bunch before you figure them out, before you find a good deck recipe, especially this, which is something quite new. But let's jump straight into it and talk about having this inside the 99. There are a bunch of different Storm commander decks that could be very interested in both sides of this card. For example, Joira, Weatherlight Captain, would be interested in both Birgi and the Harnfel Horn. For example, if you discard a card, you will exile the top 2 cards of your library from the game with the artifact, and you may play those cards this turn. So if you exile, for example, 2 artifacts, you could cast those 2 artifacts, and then you would draw a card with Joira's ability, and with the cards you don't really want to have in your hand, for example, an excessive amount of lands that you draw into with Joira, you simply discard those to draw more cards to really go through your entire deck in an efficient way. This is truly going to upgrade Joira. But this is also a great card for Eldheimer of the Infinite. For example, if you have a useless card on top of your library that you can't cast or don't wanna cast with Eldheimer of the Infinite, and you have this artifact in play, simply discard a card you don't wanna have in your hand, for example a land, and you exile the pesky card you don't wanna see, and another card. And that other card you exile might be something you wanna cast, but now you have something new on top of your library as well, helping you go through the deck. Not as efficient and strong as with Joira, but definitely helping out Eldheimer as well. I think this could be something for potential Storm Kes and Storm Yeleva depending on how you construct their builds. When it comes to Idris, a little bit of a forgotten commander, he only cascades when you cast from hand, so you wanna go for the Birgi, God of Storm, in this case the creature, and whenever you cascade you also cast, so whenever you cast something you will add 2 red mana to your mana pool. So Birgi could really help out storming and ritualing through for Idris a tiny bit depending on how you build the deck. But I also think it is possible to construct your Idris deck in a way so that you're able to utilize your Horn if Idris doesn't get to see action. There are games where your opponents are simply just counterspelling Idris or having blockers in play, preventing Idris from doing its thing. And then the Horn could basically be a secondary win con of sort. You simply cast the Horn and you try to storm off that way instead. I don't think this card is something for Godo at the moment because I think this ritual creature Birgi might be a little bit too slow for Godo. But I might be wrong, maybe Godo might enjoy that little creature to help out speed out the win, and maybe Godo might enjoy the Horn as well for some card drop potential. When it comes to farm decks, for example Tymna and Kram, or Tymna and Jeska, or Tymna and Rograph, or something of the sort, I think this card has some interesting potential. For example, you cast your Adnas, this will only force you to lose 3 life from the Adnas because Birgi with free CMC is the front card and the artifact at 5 won't be seen by the Adnas, you will go through it only losing 3 life, so that's fine. And then you basically cast Birgi and you start casting a bunch of spells, making Birgi into a great ritual here. I don't know if it's absolutely necessary or needed for the Storm win cons, but it's also a creature that could attack and draw cards with Tymna, and the Horn is also potentially interesting. Maybe the farm decks could also construct their deck in some form of way so that the Horn would create some form of Storm win con on its own, like a 1-card combo. That would be really interesting if it could. I actually think the Turbo Farm players are gonna experiment back and forth until they figure out how to implement the Horn inside their farm decks. Now let's move forward and talk about having this as your commander instead. First off, the potential rule question. Yes, you are allowed to have this as your commander because you will select Birgi, a creature, as your legendary commander, but when you cast Birgi, you can select to cast the Horn instead. Now Birgi might be able to produce an interesting deck on her own, but I think it's the horn we wanna go for here. The advantage of having the horn inside the 99, for example in Idris or another multicolored commander deck, is that you have more access to more colors, which mean better cards in general for the deck. But if you're having this as the commander, going only red instead, you have access to it from the command zone, and if it gets destroyed you can recast it paying the commander tax. So there are some upsides with having this as a boss. But playing with the horn might demand some deck construction thought. You see, you're going to reduce your hand size eventually to 0. You can't just sit there and exile forever, except Yoira could do that, because Yoira is drawing cards when you cast spells, refilling your hand, but in this case, your deck has to refill your hand in some form of way. But I don't think this is going to be a problem, because red has a bunch of possible ways to actually draw more cards. For example, let's take this scenario. You have 2 cards in your hand, 2 random cards that don't do anything. Let's say 2 mountains in your hand, and you have the horn in play, and you discard one of your mountains, and you exile, let's say, a Desperate Ritual and a Tormenting Voice. Let's say you cast your Desperate Ritual to gain 3 red mana. Then you cast your Tormenting Voice, discarding 1 card as an additional cost, but then you draw 2 cards. You're basically regaining hand size here. Red also have access to a bunch of wheels that are gonna refill your entire hand. Let's say you have 5 cards in your hand. You discard them one by one to the horn that's gonna exile the top 10 cards of your library. Among them you might find a Wheel of Fortune and some rituals. Cast your rituals to gain some mana, and then cast your Wheel of Fortune, regaining a hand of 7, and now you simply discard them one by one, exiling top 14 cards from your deck, and from here you should be able to basically go through your entire deck if you have enough wheels and rituals in it. The potential here is quite enormous. You basically ritual out a 5 commander artifact into play as fast as you can with some artifacts and red rituals, which shouldn't be hard because we want to have as many rituals inside the decks as possible. And then you simply discard a bunch of cards to draw into more cards from your deck, and from there you basically cast rituals and more wheels, and you should be able to go through your entire deck really fast, really consistent, and win the game in some form of way like Aetherflux Reservoir could do the job. I could really see this deck doing wonders. It could be a really scary deck. A deck that could consistently win somewhere around, I'm gonna say turn 3, maybe turn 2, definitely turn 4, if it's built in a good way. But also, I think this could be a really fun deck. Fun for you, not that fun for your opponents. I mean, sitting there and watching someone to storm off might be a little bit of a drag, but if you're a good pilot, you could execute it quite fast. So, as a finalized review, I've said this before, but I'm gonna say it again. I actually think Birgid and the Harnfel Horn could definitely claim the spot of being the best card from the entire Kaldheim set. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like what I do and you wanna support me, feel free to share my videos or even checking out my Patreon page. Also, purchasing cards from the TCG Players website using the affiliate link in the description below of the video will also help the channel grow. So a big thank you to all of you.